Welcome to the next episode of what's currently going on inside my brain. Joining me today is the OG BFF, Amanda. Welcome.
Welcome. I am so excited to be invited into your brain. I'll tell you that. It's taken a long time to get there.
Yeah, well, we've known each other, since 2006?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. 2006 sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, if my math is correct, roughly coming on 14 years.
I was told there'd be no math in this quiz.
Well, I can't really say I'm really all that good at math at this point.
Sneaks in
But,
there.
when we met at George Washington.
It was, picture it, Sicily, 1948. It was a cold and windy day, and in walked this gentleman who knew risk management and I didn't, and I needed a partner for my project. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, it was, so the project, which was always interesting with some of the classes that we took. But, my first impression of you, which was someone that was essentially very standoffish, didn't want to talk to anyone. You came in and you sat down, and it just so happened to be you sat down in front of me in this particular class. What was the professor's name? Is Bonanno?
Yeah, it was Bonanno. Also shaved head.
That's true. I think, yeah. So I don't know what your first impressions were of me at the time. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know, but.
Oh yeah, you totally know. Yeah, we're not editing this, right? This is just straight up. In risk management, the project.
Amanda
Uncut. No, this was the project we ended up having to do for the semester was a risk management profile, and we chose Gotham, which is good because I still like my Batman. But we ended up for Gotham, like Metro, basically for like the subways. And I have still to this day the same quality that I can smell who's going to make me successful in a room and like who has what I need. And you were absolutely the person in that room that had the confidence and seemed like you knew what you were talking about and wasn't full of BS, because there were a lot of that in that room. And I mean, my first impression was just confidence and knew the topic really well and was perfectly happy to stand in front of an entire class to do the discussion. And I was like, yes, all the things I don't want to do and don't have. So my weaknesses became your strengths that I drew upon.
Yeah, so the funny part was, we had to get together for our group meeting. This is where I found out that, and I've only had this one time, and every time I see you, I ask you, what, no pumpkin souffle?
I know.
14 years, I've gotten it one time. And so we had
That's how I had to lure people over to do work on a Sunday, It was like, I'll cook for you, but yeah.
So yeah, we did this project on risk management, and we had to prepare all of the threat actors that were in there. It was all physical security. And so I'm like, hey, let's choose Gotham.
Oh, we did a risk profile that the Penguin was like one of our big adversaries.
The Riddlers and all of his henchmen, the Penguin. And so we got up there, and it came down to my time to present all of these threat actors. And my group, including you, and the entire class, and the professor could not stop laughing throughout the entire presentation. I ignored all of you and just kept on moving forward. And eventually the professor said, that's it, I've had enough. You all got an A. Good, done. I'm like, but I'm not finished with my presentation.
Yes, but the combining of a sense of humor in this industry is just such an unbelievable thing. It has always led me to an A in class. So.
Absolutely. So, your journey from George Washington University to today, the CISO at Relativity, what kind of steps did you take along the way? What kind of hardships did you have? What did you have to get over? What do you think made you successful?
There were a couple like leaps. I don't know that this is the same crowd listening is like really into human evolution, but there is a terminology called punctuated equilibrium. And so it's just like the successive attempts of whenever you try things in evolution, that every once in a while there's like a fast jump and then it slows down for like a couple thousand years. And so there were literally a few times that it just hit punctuated equilibrium in my career. So I think that there was like GW, I got recruited for guidance software at the time, and that was a lot of in the trenches fun to try to learn quickly some of the technical stuff. And then government contracting, Booz Allen, was super helpful to lay the foundation of like how the government does security. And then after Booz Allen was SecureWorks, Dell SecureWorks, that was in the trenches again for incident response for a lot of Fortune 50. Symantec, which was, I consider my time on the bench, basically. That was whenever like I knew I was going to be remote. And at the time, my boss said to me, you can be remote from Arizona, but I was leaving DC and that was the mecca, right, for our industry. And he was like, you can be remote, but your career is going to be stunted. You're never going to go forward in your career. And I was like, well, it's that or move with the guy that I'm in love with. So I'm going to go. And just, I actually really just wanted to try out Arizona because I'd never been to that part of the world. And so I spent like 5 years as a service delivery manager. And that was when I learned like how a lot of people do their security wrong. And like, it was like yelling into a vacuum whenever you're telling like, you know, a Fortune 50 or a Fortune 10 CEO and a CISO, and you're telling them like, this is what you need to be doing. This is fundamental parts of security, blah, blah, blah. And they still won't do it or implement it for all of the myriad of reasons, like budget, lack of response, lack of, you know, whatever. And then I got tired of it and was like, man, I just want to be able to enact some of the changes. And I finally went to Zurich, finance and insurance, and they were willing to take a risk on me because I had not been, you know, in charge of anything so far. And I spent like 8 months there, and that was it. Basically realizing, oh, that's why people don't enact their security, that I kept yelling at them. It's really difficult to try to get things done. It's like going uphill both ways to school in the snow. And then I got recruited to Relativity. And that is the real jump. That was the jump where I was like, you want me to be a chief security officer? Right now I'm a VP, you know, in incident response and forensics. This is a big jump for a product company. I don't know anything about product security. I like some, but that was the huge jump. So the journey is just genuinely finding out, like seeing things that you wish you could make better, but not being able to, and then having people take chances on me, which paid off in the end, I think, for both of us.
So when you were at Symantec, you're one of, if not the largest MSSP at the time. What would you say is the the top mistake a lot of these companies were making when it came to cybersecurity programs?
I would say the top mistake is that they would purchase something, but not configure it correctly. So like you would have an endpoint in place, but it wasn't up to date. It wasn't deployed 100%. You would have an MSSP, but it wasn't getting all of the logs in your visibility. You know, it was like just consistently buying something and then not configuring it correctly to work correctly. And then you
I
end
think
up,
that kind of go both ways, right? Not only misconfiguring it. I mean, think about the amount of people, like the last one, so-called Amazon breach. It had really nothing to do with Amazon, but a misconfiguration and the actual trusting of a contractor, but a misconfiguration of the system allowed sensitive data to get compromised.
well, misconfigurations is like the biggest thing that you look for when you're a pen tester, right? You're looking for something misconfigured, you're looking for something vulnerable, but like it's frustrating whenever you would tell somebody like, you know, to invest in something and then they get it and then they don't use it correctly and then they get rid of it because it didn't help them or save them from a breach. And I'm like, but you didn't give it a chance. That's like, I bought one of those mirror things, but I can't blame the mirror if I'm not going to lose weight if I don't use it. Like if I just turn it on but then walk away, like it doesn't work that way, man. You got to be part of this. So it's real interesting. But yeah, I do think that this is the biggest problem I see still in the industry across the board, is that people buy things. Well, first of all, they don't always buy it. You know, there's the language of security that I think people still seem put off by. And they also see a lot of like fear mongering in articles in the media. And so then they'll jump on whatever the latest thing is, like Zoom. Oh my God, Dan, why are we using Zoom? It's so horrible. Well, is it up to date? Does it have the security features enabled? Are you configured correctly? Then you're probably not so difficult to work with. But well, I mean, you're difficult to work with, but
Well, only at times. It's interesting because as I was going through and at my current employer, we didn't have a video conferencing solution that we would look to talk to with our members. And at that time, that's when all of the vulnerabilities came out with Zoom. And I'm like, let's not go down this path just yet with Zoom. There are alternatives mainly because my biggest concern at that time was the CEO had said, I don't know when I'm going to have, these things are going to be fixed. Like there was no ETA. And I'm like, well,
oh,
risk is
but
always.
Yeah, but I mean, every product has vulnerabilities. It was just
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Zoom didn't know that people were going to have 630,000 downloads in one day. They didn't know that all of a sudden that we were going to go to a remote life, that everyone was going to. And what happens when you increase your surface attack area? You increase your attacks. So like everyone, it's the same thing for Mac. Like, oh, Mac doesn't have vulnerabilities. They're so much safer, more secure. No, they're just a lot smaller surface attack area than Windows. So it was just I feel bad for Zoom, but look, I mean, they got their stuff together. They prioritized it. But it all goes back to like, did you configure things correctly too?
Absolutely. And so when they were asking me, oh, what are we going to use? Or actually, why can't we use Zoom? So-and-so's using it. I said, well, if this was last week, that I would have been, because I love Zoom, I'd have been like, yep, full steam ahead on Zoom. But risk is also about evaluating at the time. And I said, at this time, since we have nothing,
Hmm.
I'll look at an alternative. And, at other places where, like, BlueJeans is one of the ones that I
Yeah,
happen to
you
enjoy.
you sent
So
me an invite for that. Yeah, the other day when we did coffee on Blue Jean, and I was like, what is this Blue Jean?
yeah, it's similar to Zoom. It just so happened to be they didn't have any known vulnerabilities. But you're absolutely right. This is the big thing that came out, and this is where I really start to get irritated with the security research community. Why did they drop a 0 day out there like that? Why didn't they work with the vendor and be like, hey, look, uh, you got some problems. Why don't you go ahead and fix them? Let me
Mm-hmm.
know when you're gonna get them fixed. And I was, nope, I'm just gonna drop it to the world, and let's go ahead in the middle of the pandemic of COVID-19. Let's
Scare
just go
people
ahead
more.
and yeah, let's just go ahead and make every business that's now moving to a remote workforce in a way in which they can try to maintain some level of human interaction. Let's go ahead and ruin that for everyone too,
Yeah, I saw some
instead of helping to
dialogue
get it
online
fixed.
about it though, like where somebody was like, look, this is how this works. We find something and we feel like we have an obligation to the public to let them know. And I saw some dialogue about it on like Twitter or something. Not that I tweet much, but like, I'm present, I'm hip. And I saw like some dialogue
You're
about it
not
and I
yet.
was
Get off my grass.
not yet. I've let you keep that one, um, but like I was watching and I was like, I totally I disagree with them. Obviously, I'm on your side about this, but I also acknowledge that like that's my point of view as a security professional. Like, I feel like they are a different realm. That's something that I can't understand their motivation any more than I can understand well the motivation of an adversary. Doing something for money isn't really how I operate. Maybe if it's a weird thing. It is a weird thing, but I prefer, and that's why we have a bug bounty program at my company, because we understand that like people need to make money. That's their job. You're a security researcher. Follow the process. And I'm sure Zoom has a
Who are
bug
y'all
bounty.
using for your bug bounty program?
HackerOne. Am I supposed to say
Yep.
that? I think. Yeah. Am I allowed to?
It's probably on their site. I mean,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
when I was running bug bounty programs for Silent Circle, we used both BugCrowd and HackerOne.
I
Um,
like them. We're like looking to go larger with the program this year towards the end of the year and everything. It's a funny thing, like when you have a product company, everything locks down in times of crisis and like you try to execute your main priorities in a roadmap. But the one area of a company that still gets love, attention, affection, and money is security. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll go bigger with Bug Bounty then.
I love them, and this is why I get irritated when that security research community says, "Oh, I feel a responsibility to the public." How about responsible disclosure? Call them and be like, "Look, uh, in 30 days, I'm going to announce this because it's that bad,"
It's a critical.
and
I
work with
mean,
them.
give them even less. Just say you got 7 days. I mean, and let's do an SLA that's in accordance with the framework. You get 7 days with a critical. In some places, in ours, criticals is 24 hours. So, like, I would say you give them 7 days to try to resolve it. But
Yep, they
eh,
didn't do anything. So, you
yeah.
know, that's uh, that's the reason why I'm not using Zoom right now in my corporate world because, well, we didn't have anything in place.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I went with the one that didn't have known. I'm sure BlueJeans probably has issues as well. They're just not yet known. Uh,
Hmm.
I can choose which AWS instance my stuff's going to be in. I mean, that was the other problem with Zoom is that they at least I think they could at the time you
Control of
couldn't
their data and their
state.
location. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't control it. They just had it everywhere. But hey, a lot of companies have that. at this point.
It's a
So
cloud
you're,
world, man.
yeah, everything is connected in some way, shape, or form. So you're now the CISO at Relativity. You're having to build up a team. You've been there now 2 years.
Yeah, a little over 2 years, 2.5.
And when you started, it was basically you and a handful of people that were already there.
12 people total. And it was basically a product security team. So they were like pretty good at their product security. And whenever I would say anything about cyber, they were like, it's like that Stand and Deliver movie when he was like, what's calculus? It was like, what's cyber? I was like, oh man, cyber is going to be the big differentiator for this company. That's what it is. So yeah, we had to build it out. Now we're at over 55 globally. 10 specialized teams. Yeah, it was a lot of work. We put in pillars with cyber and operational risk management, compliance, stuff like that.
So did you personally interview all 55 people?
Most of them, some of them we didn't. We do a lot of interns that we bring in for cyber with a program called Year Up because we're like super focused on trying to like the next gen security professional. So I didn't interview some of them, but yeah, a lot of them I have, especially internal transfers. I always interview those. It's like kind of an elitist team. Like it's hard to get on. So like I like to make it difficult. But yeah, I interviewed a lot of them.
So what kind of qualities are you looking for in the people that you're bringing onto your team?
Wow, I wish you had told me you were going to ask me that because I'm going to say whatever I think and like I feel like I could be more polished about this later. But the first thing I tend to look for is that they don't react poorly to some off the wall questions. And my off the wall questions are not the Google questions like a penguin walks in with a sombrero. They're more like aligned with like, you're in the car on your morning commute. What is the thing that you typically think about? Those kind of things. But it's because I'm trying to profile them a little bit, not by their answer, but how they respond to the questions. So I'm looking for people who respond with, good character, good aplomb, and some originality. Like some of the questions that I ask and the answers are just like so cliche. Like, if you ask somebody like, what animal would you be? And they're like, I'd be like a horse because I'm a good worker, that kind of thing. You're like, ooh, no, I was looking for some creativity. So I think honesty, creativity, ability to, pivot and follow the fact that I bounce around a lot in conversations and be able to follow along
Did you
were some
answer
key
your own
things.
reply with Liger?
It's a magical animal. um, but actually, I was a bunny rabbit because I hop from thing to thing, like, and I get it. And I'm soft and cuddly. But yeah, I think I look for a lot of those qualities. And then the biggest one that, from depending upon where they are in the organization that I built out, was vision casting. Like if you're a director and I'm hiring you for a director, like you should be able to cast a vision for me to understand and follow. At my level, I shouldn't have to set the strategy for you. You should be telling me as a subject matter expert in your area, what is the vision you foresee? And then we can work together to decide where we're going to take it. But I shouldn't be the one who's telling my, operational risk management director where they're taking this program or, any of those things. So yeah, I think vision casting is a big one. What about you? What do you look for from a like high level leader?
Uh, what do I look for?
I always look
Well,
for like who they're going to bring with them too. I always ask that question from a leader. I'm like, and how many people do you think would follow you? Because it's always an interesting question because they'll say like one or two or something. And then when no one follows, you're like,
yeah, it's an interesting one. When I was in the DC area, it was very easy for me to get people to follow me from anywhere because everyone's in DC.
yeah.
Then I moved to South Bend, Indiana, and I got a good handful of people to come with me.
Hmm.
And now that I'm in New York, I'm kind of still waiting to see where our gaps are going to be as we're changing very quickly
Mm.
with our infrastructure. But the first thing that I did when I got there was, what's your internship program look like? Because I am huge on interns. Having taught adjunct, I preferred to get my interns from my students, but I didn't have that luxury at this time.
Mm.
And so in my younger folks, I want to see desire. I want to know why they may be in love with the technology and cybersecurity. Do they have a home lab? What are they doing beyond schoolwork? Is it, are they playing around with Raspberry Pis? Do they, what kind of things are driving them? I look to see what type of things they have implemented in their young life that would allow me to see a discipline in them. As an example, my latest protege, she started off in ballet, and she was in ballet for many, many, many years. And I'm going, okay, that takes a lot of discipline. You're going to get hurt. How do you recover from injury? How are you going to take that framework that you've built in yourself, and can you apply that here? And I would say in this case, she absolutely did. She's a gem to be around. Her mistake was asking for a nickname too early on. Yeah, because I would tell the story of, how some of my younger folks got their nicknames. And at the time, she had just come back from a sick day. And I said, well, if you were to give you one now, it would be
Sniffles.
Wally Pip. Yeah, Sniffles, right? Because that's what Lou Gehrig used to call Wally Pip. And so she's like, no, I'll wait. Well, one of my other interns had said to her one day, hey, what's that nickname Dan gave you? Sprinkles? Well, guess what her nickname just became because of that? Sprinkles. Now, it does kind of fit her because it does seem like she's sprinkling fairy dust on all of the nonsense that we had as we're standing up that security program. And she has just done an amazing job. The actual executive team, which in our case is everyone from an AVP to the CEO, she was voted as the employee of the month. Everyone that comes in contact with her just, absolutely loves her. She's a hard worker. Everything I throw at her, she comes back with intelligent questions. Like she's done her research. So that was important to me.
This is interesting, is that some of our best people that I love are not from our industry. I mean, I hired somebody who was also like a protege of mine at times, but I didn't hire her. Someone else on my team had hired her for cyber as an intern. And she was a bartender that put herself through grad school. Her grad school was for cyber at GW. But then she came to the team as like an intern, and then, a junior analyst, and now she's an analyst, and she's been across the board. Everybody's saying like, she's amazing. She's, a go-getter, whatever. There was a time whenever during internship though, that they weren't sure. Like, I think, talk through them. But what? Oh my God, there's kids behind me. What a shock. But it was one of those interesting things during internship though, that like they weren't sure like what to do with her, I think, as an internship. And they weren't sure she was performing really great. And so my response to them was like, as a bartender, you go through like a lot of stressful situations, more than you would realize. And I was like, why don't you stress her out and see if she breaks? She's either going to break or perform so amazingly that you'll finally see what I see in her. And so they did. They put her on call by herself for incident response for the weekend. And she all of a sudden had to figure out how to get through all of the different interfaces and Splunk and Palo and everything, and like run down incidents and stuff. And at the end of the weekend, it was a unanimous decision for her to become a full-time employee of the company. Everyone was like, she was awesome. And I was like, you come from these different areas, and her undergraduate is communications. And I was like, these are great skills to bring to the cyber realm. So yeah, I mean, looking outside the box for people who are going to come to the cyber is a really big one. So.
Yeah. Now, and as I get more and more senior, I'm looking for people that are going to bring diversity of thought. I know what my strengths and weaknesses are, and I don't need people that have the same strengths as me. I need their strength to be where my weaknesses are, because I'm looking to build a team. I'm not looking to build a bunch of clones of me. I commonly tell my team, don't mistake what I want with reality. It's up to you to tell me what's possible today, what's possible 30 days from now, and what's possible a year from now, and so on. Because I will come up with some crazy ideas. So I'll give them scenarios. And as you had mentioned, how quickly can they come up with an action plan that will be able to make everyone successful? Some do well, some don't. I often treat, the more senior you are, the less rope I tend to give you in terms of making mistakes. Because you shouldn't, at least if you're going to make a mistake, it should be, in this case, learn fast to the point to where there's no service interruption, because there's going to be times where it happens, but how quickly can you pivot? But if I find out about the mistake through an end user before I find out about it from my employee, I have a really hard time with those things. And then you don't
Well,
last very long.
acknowledging that mistakes are going to happen. Like, I think that that's part of the reason why my interview style is to be a little bit kooky, is because I want to see how you handle out of the box, but I also want to engender an environment where people think that crazy things can happen. And so, like, I want you to think like that, because if you think with unlimited resources and unlimited, boundary, you have no boundary, you do and create amazing things. And they don't always work, and you have to fail better. So I think that iteration is true. The diversity of thought thing is interesting because it's such a buzzword now for diversity, but people keep misunderstanding. We're not looking for diversity because we want to check a box that we have women or we have people of different races. We want to check a box that we have diversity of thought. I hired people who were white males that had government background. Now, their diversity is that we had a couple vets. I needed people who thought like government people. That's exactly what the program needed at the time. I needed some people who were super process oriented and understood adversaries from the government background. That's diversity. Like, don't consider that it's just such a cliche box checking. So it's a problem. And those people who were mini-me's, I can't stand those. I tend to manage them out of my company quickly. I do not like people who just mini-me or try to manage up to me. I don't need that. Like you said, we need people who are going to make us see our blind spots, because I can see all the I see around me. It's the blind spots I need protection from.
Absolutely true. And I tend to make my judgments in the interview pretty quickly, especially when they are more engineer like. Within 15 minutes, I'm like, yep, this is a person, or nope, I'm not moving forward with this person.
Do you get out of the interview when you start? Because I've had a couple interviews when I knew 10 minutes in like it wasn't going to be a fit. It's just not. And it's almost like you just get through the rest of the interview. Do you like walk out and you're like, we're good?
Pretty much, yes. I just walk out. So regardless, at about that time, because I always preface it with, we tend to do group interviews with a lot of these things. On occasion, eventually I may do a one-on-one depending on at what level they are. But I show up and I'm like, look, I only have a short amount of time, so let me just tell you a little bit about this position, what I expect, a little bit about me, hear from them. And I go, okay, look, I have another meeting I have to get to, so do you have any questions that I can answer for you? And then I get up and leave. So it doesn't matter if they were good or not good. I'm really only giving them 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I get up and leave, and I let everyone else come back, and then tend to someone that's closer to me in that room. They're like, because it's at a certain point they can tell based on my questions as to whether or not they were good or bad, and they'll text me like, should we just end this interview now? And I'll be like,
Yeah,
you
I do.
I'd like to hear what the group.
I tag team it with my chief of staff, and I do the same thing. I'm also a remote leader, so like I interview remotely most of the time. So I always have to have a person in the room to help me to gauge some of the things, to make sure I'm not missing some of the things that are going on in the room, the subtleties. But yeah, I tag team it as well. But I do not let it be known or recognized whenever I'm like, this is a waste of time. Like, I wouldn't do that. I'll let the human being keep going, because the reality is, like, I have been surprised before occasionally. And I feel like it's a responsibility where somebody who like took the time, got dressed, came stressed. I mean, they're stressed out, right? They showed up to an interview and they're probably not at their best at that moment with their nervousness. So I'll let it go. But for the most part, yeah, there's a moment in every interview when you realize it's not going to work, that you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm just wasting their time now too.
Right. And this is why I let the rest of my team finish their part of the interview. Because I'll still want to hear what they have to say. And if, I always tend to believe that, hey, I might have missed something. If everyone in the room is like, no, this person's really good, then I'm like, okay, great. Set up a one-on-one interview with me, and then I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
Especially when someone tells me that their favorite, that they're a network engineer and they've designed this and they designed that. I'm like, great, let's draw up on the board an OSPF network, and I want to see a stubby network, a not so stubby network. Show me where area 0 is, and they fumble through that.
Yeah.
Game over. Bye.
Well, I mean, there's a couple just basic questions that I always like to ask when it's the cyber realm, and I'm always like, tell me what DNS is and how it works. And they stumble through that. And I'm like, you're either super nervous or you don't know fundamental things. So yeah, I mean, I do those as barometric, but you built out your team all the way, or are you still building?
No, also, I mean, for me, it's an overall about a 3-year process.
Yeah.
Um, so I had to build everything. So as the CIO, I have also the cybersecurity reporting into me. So we're building that out. We're building out the rest of the IT team. Um, it will take a while because I have to hire developers to cybersecurity. Largely right now I'm having to rely on an MSSP for a lot of what we're doing because I don't have that many direct full time. It's actually a little bit of a challenge. I would have thought in Long Island there would be a lot more people, but a lot of them want to go be in Manhattan, and this is the part where it gets somewhat crazy. I feel like I'm back in DC at times. They're okay with the 2-hour commute on the train, and I'm like that's just time. That's money going out the door. I can sit there and look at it and like I can be home in 20 minutes. Why would I want to do that to myself? And
You need to
spend
get into that
2
remote
hours.
life. You need to get to that remote life, man. That's what's up.
All right. And the culture was not for people to be remote. Now
It
that
still
we've
isn't,
got
but it
now
is
that we've got this
today.
COVID aspect, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be able to get more technology people working
Yeah.
remotely now, which
Yeah.
will be key. But
I would
that's okay.
challenge
That's life.
that's a thing we need to be considering overall in a lot of different industries. Is like there were so many things that people are like, oh, we could never be remote for blah blah blah. I was the only and still am the only remote executive for Relativity. And it's been years of like having to handle that and like be the harbinger, but so many different things like Wall Street, et cetera. There were so many physician appointments, people are like, oh, we could never be in a remote capacity for that. But now we do all of it. And it took us just weeks to get to this realm of an operating model that allows for that. And I would challenge that there's like, probably other things in our industries that we say we can't ever do cloud that we probably should challenge that we probably can. We just choose not to for whatever stipulations.
It's true. You will, as humans, we will adapt and we will adapt quickly. And we will make the best of the situation, or we will do something stupid. Thankfully,
Punctuated equilibrium.
Right. I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
We adapted very quickly, and we will continue to. And now
Yeah.
they're actually thinking, oh, how can we do this on a more permanent basis with a lot of positions? So this way, in the event that there's another COVID-like scenario, we're not hurting as badly, and we can recover faster. And I'm like, finally, you're hearing it. And I think a lot of companies have gone down that path.
Yeah.
So this is one of the interesting things that when we were talking before about you joining Relativity, and one of the questions you had asked me and was, do you think they're hiring me because I'm female? And I said, who cares?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I didn't know we were going to go there. Let's do this. All right.
Yeah. Well, it's I think in the people that get the opportunity to get asked to the dance, who cares why you're being asked to the dance? You're either going to success or you're going to fail. And I had said to you, who cares? Because you're good and you're being hired for what your potential is and where you could be later. They're not hiring you because you're ready to go today. They're hiring for where you're going to be 3 years from now. How many other times do you think other people in your situation have felt that? What kind of advice would you give them if they feel that way, like you did, at least for a short period of time?
What's funny is that for the record, for anyone who listens to this, I've asked Dan every single job I've taken in this industry since we met, should I take this job? And I've talked about the opportunity with you and weighed it and decided, like, based on your advice, if I should. It's interesting, 2 parts. The first one is that you bring up that specific comment because I just said that to the person I hired for my director of operational risk management. He seems a little insecure at times, like that I didn't recognize maybe or know, and he's going to get found out that he doesn't have experience doing what I put him in charge of. And I said, I didn't hire you because what you had done. I hired you because what you can do and what you have the potential to do. I just said that to him 2 days ago. So that conversation point is great advice, and I use it myself, and I do not put a trademark Dr. Daniel Ford Sr. But that's my first advice. The second part is like the part about who cares. I asked that as another person I was interviewing. I said, it was for a C-level in our company, and it was a woman, and I said, what would you think if you heard people say that you were only going to be given this job because you're a woman? And she said, I would say, who cares? You get the job for whatever reason, but you keep the job because you're good at it. Even that makes me uncomfortable, by the way. I got quoted in an interview as saying something like that when I got asked this before, and I got really uncomfortable because I was like, God, that sounds so arrogant. I'm good at my job. And I talked about it with my boss, and my boss was like, it's not arrogance. Arrogance would be, I'm the best ever at my job. He's like, you're good. You're actually underselling yourself. You're actually really great at your job. And I was like, oh, okay, keep talking about me, right? But it's a reticence for people that we're uncomfortable with being arrogant. We don't want to seem arrogant, but it is a confidence of like, I do think I'm good at this. I enjoy it. I think that combination is what's going to make anyone successful, regardless of why you got the job. If you're good at something and you enjoy it, you'll be successful. And then I just wanted to mention that this is also the dance analogy is how we talk about diversity and inclusion. Diversity is getting the invite to the dance, but inclusion's like getting to dance and being part of it. And I think that's a big part of this is that I'm not in any way, shape, or form a token on this leadership team. I am in every meeting for the executive team. I am also in a subset group of the technical leadership team that includes the chief product officer, CIO, chief technology officer, and myself, the four of us. And we do all technical decisions together, which is just really great. So you'll know if it's the right fit once you're in there, both ways, if it's the right fit for the company and the right fit for you. But I mean, I'll lean back on your advice that you gave me if anybody ever asked me these questions.
Yeah, who cares? Because you're good, and if you don't know it, you're going to figure it out. And that's the most important quality. Is I don't have to have all of the answers. I just got to know where to find them.
Yes, which is fine in an interview as well. When you ask people, I always like to push people on the boundaries of what they know and see how they react to that question.
All true. All
Yeah.
true. So what I last want to ask you is, how are you able to juggle, and what kind of tips can you give other women that are trying to juggle being a mom and an executive? Because it's something I cannot answer.
You can answer being a dad and juggling it, but your kids are older than mine. I'll open up on this one. Hold on. Let's see if I can show how I'm juggling this really well. There we go. I'm juggling them right there.
Oh yeah.
My kids are right behind me, and it's super distracting right now because I work from home all the time, but now I'm working from home. And when I chose this as my office, it was like, oh, this great space, it's a sunroom, but I didn't acknowledge that it was the center of the house. And so everyone's like constantly going past me while they're home in quarantine. But
No, I think that was a conscious decision because you like being the center of the universe.
don't I? Don't I? That INTJ, we just love it. But no, I'd say that as you can imagine, I get this question a lot from people because there's still only like 5 or 6% women leaders in the Fortune 10 and so on. So there's a lot of bad statistics out there that still say it's a really long uphill battle for women in the workplace in a lot of different positions, especially in security. So I get this question a lot. The biggest thing I would say that's helped me the most was redefining what I thought good was, both at my job and also as a mom. Because I think I didn't want to take relativity because I was super scared. I didn't want to take Zurich either. I was scared I was going to be a bad mom then. I was going to travel a lot. My kids, I have twin 6-year-olds and a 9-year-old. And, there's just a lot of different things you worry about. And I felt like I was being a great mom when I was on the bench, so to speak, at Symantec and having babies. But I didn't want to mess that up. But I stopped thinking that a good mom is what you saw like on TV growing up, because I grew up still with like the Brady Bunch and stuff like that. And they always just seem so sweet and understanding about everything whenever their kids like draw on the walls. And I started to realize to set yourself up for success in your job and at home. So like, I only buy washable markers. That's number one, I learned the hard way. I instill my strengths from my work environment into my home. You can actually kind of see it. There's a big whiteboard back there, and there is a behavior chart. And you can move up and you can move down, and you get special privileges or you lose special privileges. And those kind of like things can seem a little bit, you know, a lot, but when you have a household with 3 kids, you need it, especially when they're here 24/7. But those are strengths that I pulled from my work environment because I'm very process driven, and I do the same thing at work, you know, performance evaluations, tactical feedback. As a leader, you provide those things. So number one, redefine what you think good is, but number two, draw upon your strengths that you have in your work environment to be successful in your home life as well. Those are the 2 things I'd say.
Awesome. Well, you have anything else you would like to add? I want to be respectful to your time since you're CISO and, you know, looks like your kids are going to be running around quite
Quickly,
hectically
yeah.
soon.
Yes, it's like a ticking time bomb, right? It's like just a few
Oh, it
minutes
always
before they
is.
do. You know, no, I just think it's awesome that you're doing this. It's nice to have like an environment where people can just speak real candidly about some of these topics and get to talk about it and get to be in a relaxed environment with somebody that I know and trust. So I feel like it's a safe space for me to say a lot of the things I do off kilter. I think it's cool that you don't tell me any of the questions you're going to ask me because you get definitely like really logistic, really
Well,
serious.
you know, we stayed kind of on script in terms of like, you know, the topics, you know, what the topics were going to be, and
Yeah,
you know,
no.
and it is this. I did this for a way to make sure I would stay connected and things that I'm thinking about, because I get asked a lot of these questions, and it's a way for me to
Have diversity
get
of
some
thought.
exactly
I
get
know.
additional diversity of thought outside of my environment.
Yeah.
So, you know, as we look at other people in their environments, can I learn from their mistakes and vice versa? And I hope to continue doing it. So,
Well, I'll be subscribing, so I appreciate it.
Amanda, Diana, I appreciate it.
Doctor, I concur.
All
Thank
right.
you very much for having me.
Thank you.